This is the Podcast Express, and we're talking to whoever's listening out there. Welcome to 5 Minutes of Trouble, the only podcast on the internet that discusses the John Carpenter film Big Trouble in Little China 5 minutes at a time. I'm Josh Horowitz from the Wing Kong Exchange.
And I'm Brett Stiller, your co-host, riding shotgun.
And today we have some new great guests on board the Podcast Express. I bring to you James Rodatus and Sid Bridge of the Reels and Wheels podcast. Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh my God, I am so excited to be here for just this 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're worthy because this has got to be the best 5 minutes of Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, shut up, James. We are so worthy. My life has built up to this moment, guys.
You're worthy. You are worthy. Because if I can tell how you guys arrived at the Pork Chop Express today, or the Podcast Express today, in our rear view, we saw a Pearl Gray Fiero approach, and James and Sid were on the roof and actually, pulled up alongside, jumped onto the Podcast Express and said, "Hey, can we do your podcast today?" And said, "Yeah, why not?" So.
And if you've ever been on the roof of a Fiero, there's not a lot of real estate up there for two guys to ride into a podcast.
No.
Yeah, it's a tiny compact sports car that didn't get appreciated as much as it should have.
Yeah, I actually first got to meet James and Sid on their Reels and Wheels podcast. They contacted me, not through this podcast, but from just what I've had up on the Wing Kong Exchange, and they had me on their show. It was had a great time, and an opportunity came up, and this felt that this would be a perfect episode for these guys, because they are Big Trouble fans in addition to car fans, and so... we're talking about some great minutes, as you mentioned. These are minutes 85 through 90 of Big Trouble in Little China, and these minutes start with Jack and Gracie running into yet another elevator, and they end with Jack preparing to escape from the approaching storm lightning. But a lot of stuff happens in these minutes, and we're going to discuss them.
Yeah. And from time to time, we have said in the past, this is the best 5 minutes of the movie. That's the best 5 minutes of the movie. But I think, in point of fact, this is the best 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, certainly very exciting stuff that happens here.
Absolutely.
Well, and just not just that, atmosphere, pace, music, everything times out, and sense of humor. All of it is there, and it's if you can only in your entire lifetime watch just 5 minutes of the movie, that's tragic. But this 5 minutes is probably the best one to go for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about how people, when they initially saw it, they didn't get it. They were confused, didn't do so well at the box office. If only they could have started here.
Mm-hmm.
So often now in movies, you have the event and then the flashback and then the flashback to the flashback, and then there's a side flashback. But maybe if they'd have started here with the kiss. Oh, I'm getting too far ahead of my foot, in the elevator, and, movie would have made like $800 million, but who knows? But yeah, anyway, let's get to it, gentlemen.
Yes, well, we do start out with yet another elevator. We were sort of saying that it's a recurring theme in this movie. If you were to have a Big Trouble drinking game, if you were to just count the number of elevators that they go into in this movie, you'd probably be drunk by about halfway through the movie. So by this time, this is probably the 6th or 7th. But one thing I noticed, if you look closely, this is just right after when Jack almost got attacked by the Yeren, and if you look carefully, you see that Jack is brandishing his knife very aggressively as the doors close. Just in case.
Yeah.
This is also, I think, possibly the only elevator trip in the movie going up.
That's true. Yeah, they're always going down.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, he makes a point of saying it too. He's like, "Oh yeah, where are we going? Yeah, we're going up. It's much cooler up there," he says.
One theme, by the way, I would like to have you guys thinking about as we go through these 5 minutes, and it really started right before Jack and Gracie go into the elevator. It's the last time we see the Chang Sings. And what really piqued my interest at about viewing number 127 was the Chang Sings don't seem to be dying in this final battle that they leave. When we leave, they're winning. We don't see them anymore. Like their fate is kind of up in the air. But we don't see them die either. So there's I think a theme here that ticks in that Jack is ruining, and that's the eternity of the struggle between good and evil.
Yeah, you don't see any more Chang Sing after this. You will see Egg. That comes up later. yeah, the fight goes on, as you say, Sid.
Kind of, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So then the elevator does go up. They're heading up to Lopan's office, and we get a moment where Jack notices Gracie's appearance for the first time. I guess they're finally able to, take a breather from all the stuff that's been happening, and he's got his great confidence. Jack does during this thing. His sense of bravado is probably turned up a notch, maybe due to the influence of the 6-demon bag he was taken. But when Gracie asks him, I hope you have a gun. No, I have a knife. What do you mean he's 12 feet tall? No, he's 7. I took something. Yeah, he's very confident in these this time.
Which is great because he hasn't done anything. Which is like the glory of this movie. Like he knocked himself out for the first half of the fight and spent the rest of it under one of the guards that he had already killed. So he really has done nothing in the climactic final battle at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the first time I think, Jack he's Jack, or rather, he's tried to create this persona of, the cool, laconic truck driver. And we felt like it's a struggle. How many times has he said a cool line and then he sort of looked the other way and given us a nervous look? And now he really gets to be Jack Burton for the first time.
Well, and I think, Josh, when you were on our podcast, we discussed that it seemed like Egg and Wang were trying to do all these things to put Jack at ease before the final battle and let that come out so that when it finally does come out, he does become the hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is true. I think so. Yeah, we were talking about on that episode when when they're doing the toast, to the Army and the Navy. I mean, at first I thought that was more just, maybe Wang is kind of reflecting a bit more on his Americanism as opposed to, the Asian background. But yeah, Sid, you did mention that, it's just something to make Jack more at ease, something that he's more in his element if you're talking about American stuff. So yeah, I can certainly see that.
I think, overall this scene is really great because, it can, there's something that, we can learn from this. If there's anything, Hollywood can teach us is no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening, there's always time for a kiss.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Quick, we got to get to an escape pod. But first, this place is going to blow. But first, we've got to face Lopan. But first, I think that's something we can take from this is there's always time for a kiss, no matter what's happening.
There might not be time to wipe the lipstick off your face, by the way. But
that, in all honesty, that might have been one of my favorite moments in this scene. And watching it this time, and I think the last time we watched it for our podcast, it's like he's still got the lipstick on. It looks ridiculous, but you're so caught up in the action you don't notice. But then she knows, like, Jack, you're about to have your big heroic showdown. Let's make you look right.
Yeah. Well, they play it so well. They're making out. You can kind of detect maybe there's a hint of the lipstick on him, but otherwise it's your classic Hollywood makeout scene. And then, the payoff is second 55. Elevator door opens. Jack kind of slides into the scene, and there's that smear. And, I've said before, I had some trouble getting into this movie initially. I, like a lot of people, was what's going on. It was challenging my concept of what an action movie was. But right there, second 55, right there, I was in it to win it. That paid for my ticket. That paid for all ensuing moments. It's not just the best gag in the movie. It's one of the best gags in any movie. It points out one of the great conceits in Hollywood, and that's, we're making out. Her makeup is perfect, and I don't get any makeup on me. Never happened to Sean Connery or Roger Moore.
No. Yeah, I was wondering about that. I mean, Brett, you've seen so many movies. I mean, can you think of another movie that does that, where you actually see the hero after the kiss and he's got lipstick on?
Oh God, yeah. I imagine that's probably a flub or a glitch somewhere.
But that's a great point, though. It's a Hollywood trope, and sure enough, when he's done kissing her makeup still looks perfectly fine.
Yeah, The movie that comes to mind is Vertigo. James Stewart rescues Kim Novak from the icy waters of the San Francisco Bay, and he pulls her out. She's soaking wet, but her makeup is perfect. She has that, salt waterproof makeup that was so popular in the 50s. And, that's just one of many examples of no matter what happens, her makeup is perfect. And again, it doesn't get on him. So, other than that, there's probably some unintentional glitch where a hero has some makeup on, or some lipstick on his teeth. But I feel this one was Carpenter and company saying, you know what? How come after every makeout scene, there's not a hint of lipstick or anything like that? So
it's perfect too for the Jack Burton character. I mean, any other character out there that doesn't have quite the same amount of bravado or self-confidence, I don't know if it would work as well. But this is Jack, and it just seems to fit. For all that he's done. Yes, he gets that kiss, but he still has his Jack moment where he comes out looking a bit silly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's all choreographed to perfection. I mean, this is his big moment in the movie. This is the one time when he counts the most, and it's done with this lipstick all over his face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not to jump too far ahead, but this is a gag that gets funnier because, in a moment we're going to have another Hollywood trope, the final showdown. And, there's the whole, we meet at last. Farewell, Mr. Burton. But this is all done with that smear on his lip.
That's right.
This is the first time I noticed we get to see basically James Hong in a Lo Pan suit. The glam makeup is gone, and it's just Lo Pan, or rather, Lo Pan in the flesh. And see him in the flesh, we also hear what a sleazy, creepy guy he is. He's kind of coaxing Mao Yin, and he just, it sounds like a guy he should be talking to her over the telephone. Come on over. It'll be fun. I have an Atari 2600. We'll order takeout.
Well, it's interesting. There is some dialogue which you kind of hear in the background, which is not in the screenplay. I have a copy of the Richter screenplay, and we've been sort of pointing out areas where certain things are there and other things are different. None of that dialogue seems to be in the screenplay. Lo Pan is telling Miao Yin how he suffered so much pain and agony, but Miao Yin is refusing his pleas. She actually says, "Oh, I don't understand. I don't belong to you." And Lo Pan replies by saying, "You don't. You belong to Xing Tai." And he actually seems to express his love for Miao Yin and regret having to sacrifice her.
Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, but then he then curses her for her defiance. He's like, "Oh yeah, take her, take the bitch."
Yeah,
but he's dealing with some emotions that he doesn't want to have to deal with. He really does love her. I think we touched on this a little bit, or maybe after the podcast, James and I talked about it. But Mao Yin plays it cool throughout the entire movie until this point. She's not upset at all, really, until it's looking like she might get killed. She's playing both sides.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that way back in, I think, episode 3, that, Wang's professing his love for Miao Yin, but maybe for her, it's just a free airline ticket to America.
Well, I believe I read that Mao Yin translates to cat-like.
Yes.
Which you could take to mean superficially, but any cat would sail you down the river for a cozy bed and a steady food supply. Mao Yin, I think, would have been happy being the wife of Lo Pan almost as much as she would have been happy being the wife of Wang Chi.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Let's rule the universe together. I'll get a lot of pillows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's rich. He's got a demon army. He's got like the whole city block. I mean, he's Look, how evil is Lo Pan really? I mean, because we're about to get into his death, right? And who's the cause of that death? The interloper, the outsider, the guy who does not understand the dynamics of the struggle. Earlier we had that conversation between Egg and Uncle Chu about how the universe is this balance of positive and negative furies, and when those furies are out of balance, bad things happen, like Lo Pan. But Lo Pan is part of a a struggle. I mean, if I understand the story right, the emperor who bring China into one country. So he had to take little warlords, guys like Lo Pan, and get them to come on board. He didn't kill him. He subjugated him. He didn't want him dead. Right. So he gave him the curse, and he lived for another 1,000 years serving this emperor and serving his demon. What this group has done isn't necessarily what they set out to do. Wang didn't want Lo Pan dead. He wanted his wife back. So killing Lo Pan wasn't necessarily the goal here.
Interesting point. To kind of add to that, we've talked in previous episodes about that, some ambiguity to Lo Pan. I think, primarily from a great performance by James Hong. A good actor playing a villain will find those moments to show a little pathos or sympathy. When he first gazes upon Mao Yin and he can't touch her, and there's a moment where you kind of feel sorry for the guy because he's just saying, I just want to touch you. What? This sucks. And then, we've also talked about him, not necessarily being a supervillain, but just a beleaguered CEO. Japanese, nothing works, hitting monitors and stuff like that. So,
well, he's the balance in the world of good and evil, and the emperor has the control over the good and the evil. So as long as the evil is kept, because there's always going to be this idea is a very universal idea. There's always evil. It's kind of like trying to balance peace negotiations in the Middle East. There's always a crazy in charge somewhere. But as long as he's under control and somewhat harmless, it's his people are going to suffer. But like bad things were happening under Lo Pan. Like there was a lot of sex trade going on and some kind of other illicit operations. But other than that, they were just importers and exporters.
So what you're saying is, with the demise of Lo Pan, we'll see sort of a Chinatown version of ISIS come back in like the Big Trouble in Little China universe?
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly possible, I suppose. We got rid of the Saddam Hussein of Chinatown, and who knows what will rise in that power vacuum.
Wow. Yeah. I could see factions in the Wing Kong, and of course the Lords of Death are going to go nuts and do whatever they want and think they're going to rule everything. And, we're going to see pearl gray Fieros everywhere on every street corner.
Well, that's not a bad thing. I would enjoy.
If it's a GT model, I'm all for it.
Yeah. One faction that'll benefit is 1985 Pontiac dealers in San Francisco.
That's right.
Because it does seem as though the Lords of Death have an affinity for Pontiacs. So,
and 1985 Pontiacs were particularly choice Pontiacs.
Yeah.
They're beautiful vehicles, James.
Well, I'll give credit where credit's due. This was the pre-plastic body cladding era, but I do feel compelled to remind you, Sid, that for every one Pontiac Fiero GT, there were at least probably 100 Pontiac 6000s. So it's not going to be all great.
There you go again, ruining somebody else's podcast by bringing the Pontiac 6000 into it. All right, that was a dark part of American history. You do not need to do that. We're talking about Big Trouble in Little China here, a beautiful movie, the most important parts of the movie, and here you are bringing a Pontiac 6000 little sedan box into it. Two innocent guys, Brett and Josh, here, just trying to have some fun, and you got to just mediocre it with your.
Well, I'll play along. I'll dance with the devil here, James.
Yes.
It's 1985, 1986. You're a Pontiac dealer, beautiful dealership on Van Ness Street in San Francisco, and a bunch of Lords of Death come in with sacks of money. Very dangerous but lucrative customers. How are you going to sell them those Pontiac 6000s?
You're going to bait and switch them. That's what you're going to do. You're going to show them the Fiero and the Firebird, which honestly, given I'm just guessing here, Pontiac dealer allocations in the 1980s, you had one or two nice looking sports cars to lure people in, and then you had a bunch of 6000s to sell them on. And so you get with the gang leaders, you sell them on the Fiero GT, you sell them on the Firebird, and then the gang leader comes up and it's like, what else are my guys going to drive? That horrible GM A-body platform that was the Pontiac 6000. And your gang leaders are so enthralled with the Fiero GT V6, they're like, those will do. And that's how you unload all those Pontiac 6000.
Oh, man. Yeah,
They're
And when
trying.
those V6s fry their alternators, the Lords of Death will come back to those Pontiac dealerships with vengeance on their mind.
Oh, I see it now. Every prostitute at the White Tiger gets a Pontiac 6000.
Oh, no. They're getting a Pontiac Sunbird. That's what the prostitutes are driving.
Now, James, but you're missing the easy sale here. All right, so you've sold them a Fiero, you've sold them a Trans Am, and you're going for the win here. Like you want to sell them a fleet of 6000s. Okay, you want them to be able to do the sex trade all over San Francisco. So that's when you bring the secretary out who's running the front of the dealership, and you bring her over to the Fiero. You open up the frunk, and you're like, "Get in, woman," and she can't because it's too small. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, Lords of Death, as you can see, you cannot stuff a lady into the front of a Fiero. So let's just check out this 6000 here and just, ma'am, if you could climb into the trunk, please. And, she's going to be reluctant. So you're going to have to toss her in the trunk and demonstrate to the Lords of Death how spacious the 6000's trunk is. Perfect for this kind of operation until the air suspension in the back collapses and you're dragging the ground because you kidnapped too many people. But it's the perfect car for it.
Yeah. I think, that's an added selling point in your pitch. You say you can get a hostage and your nunchucks and an M16 back there with room to spare.
Yep.
Now, was this before? Because Pontiac, they never got anything bigger in the 1980s than the 6000, did they?
Bonneville.
Oh, that's right. We forgot about the Bonneville and
still rear-wheel drive at this point, I believe.
And this episode of 5 Minutes of Trouble is sponsored by Pontiac,
Pontiac.
bringing the best in 1985 wheels.
Both the movie and the brand were driving excitement. So
okay, so where were we in that 5 minutes of China?
Yeah.
Let's actually
stop talking about how horrible Pontiac was back then.
That was a beautiful tangent, though.
it was epic. Yes,
and that was just the Pontiac dealer for the Lords of Death. That's, folks. That's how far we get into this movie.
Oh yes.
How far do you get in your podcasts? Since we've been talking about, one of the greatest gags in movie history, something I just thought of when you mentioned the Richter script. Is that gag in the script? Jack emerges from elevator with lipstick smeared on his face, is there any mention of that in the script?
It's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, I was actually going to say that kiss does not happen in the screenplay. They just kind of have a little moment, but they talk to each other. There is no kiss. So I wonder whose idea it was to do that. I'm going to guess that was Carpenter, because it just kind of ties into the whole idea about shooting the ceiling and then the ceiling falls on you, because that I don't believe was in the screenplay either.
What if he was pressured to put the kiss in by the studio? That was his needle back at them.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah. Huh.
That might also be, let's just assume that might be payback for the prologue that they forced him to put in.
Yeah.
Hey, we want you to do a prologue. What? Ruins the continuity, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we also want him to have one more kiss. Oh, okay, fine, so that was his ticking bomb.
Yeah. Well, it is good. And then it kind of moves on to another one of those POV shots as Jack and Gracie enter the room, just like we had before when you've got that steady cam kind of following the Chang Sing and company as just before they take the medicine. Now we're kind of walking into the room along with Jack and Gracie. We see a little bit where Gracie grabs an ornamental spear. And my note here was, I don't think she could have actually have done anything with that against Thunder.
I don't think anybody could have done anything with that spear. That spear looked highly impractical.
Yeah. It looked more decorative than lethal.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up for Gracie, because if you look at the expression on Kim Cattrall's face, maybe it wasn't the best choice of weapons, but, she's definitely there to play the game. She looks like, okay, I'm not just going to sit on the sidelines. I was a little bummed she didn't get to use the spear against anybody, but at least she was ready. Like, I'm going to back Jack up on this. I ain't going down without a fight.
Well, at this point in the movie, Gracie kind of becomes us. She becomes kind of like the rational person observing the action and just looking at it with a bit of sarcasm, disdain, do the right thing, do something. So she grabs the first weapon she can and just do something,
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, if you watch her face throughout the scene until we get to the fight with Thunder, she's like, get it right, guys.
And then we get more of Jack's bluster, not so fast, he says, which is made even better because he's wearing the lipstick when he says it.
Yeah. Like I said, a good gag, it's funnier. They really roll with it and roll with it.
There's so much to love in the dialogue here between Lopan's frustration that Jack's still alive and Thunder not knowing who he is. Just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Because at no time was Thunder privy to this guy's name, and now you get the point that like, who is this? Why is he even here? Which is the theme.
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah, we get Lopan once more as the beleaguered boss at this point. He's just exasperated with the fact that Jack is even there anymore. He just asks Thunder to kill him for me, and then we get Jack calling Lopan Dave again, which is great. Haven't heard that since the wheelchair scene.
Yeah. If Jack has one superpower, it might be to annoy supervillains. It's that impervious ego. It's, oh, come on. And all that dialogue is great. There's a line about people are dying right and left. It's a little like Shatner's line to Khan in Wrath of Khan, like a bad marksman, you keep missing the target. And it's such a wonderful play on the final confrontation scene.
It would be like at the end of Return of the Jedi, if instead of calling the Emperor Your Highness, if Luke had just said, "Well, excuse me, Mr. Palpatine," like called him Mister.
Yeah. Now I really want to reshoot that final.
Some great lines at that point, and then Wang has his dramatic flip entrance to kind of even out the score, along with some really great music at that point. And then we get our first scuffle. We actually get a good little sense of what might have happened if Jack decided to just fight against Thunder, because you actually do see him throw two real meaty punches, which get pretty easily blocked by Thunder.
Yeah.
It was a good thing Wang showed up when he did.
Exactly. It's nice to see them, once again, they really do make a good team.
Yeah.
Even though Jack probably will always think of Wang as a sidekick. It's like seeing the two of them together ready to face Thunder. It's like, yeah, cool, it's on. But, one thing that comes to mind to me, say what you want about Jack Burton. He's a hero, he's an anti-hero, is he worth his salt anywhere? I think one thing it comes down, he's just no good at fist fighting.
We're about to experience Jack's one superpower, which Wang knows about because he was there at the beginning of the movie with the bottle incident and saw Jack catch the bottle. So he knows that Jack's got a superpower. And what the potion did was just remove his inhibitions and his lack of confidence to not use that superpower. So he knew the potential was there for it to come out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. We then see that magic knife come out. It looks like I think he had intended to throw it at Thunder at first, but then when Thunder's fighting with Wang and they kind of go off screen, he then turns to Lopan, and we get that slow, methodical wind up, and then Jack throws it, and Lopan barely has to sidestep. I mean, it just doesn't work. It hits the gong, and that only punctuates his ineptitude at that point.
Yeah. It can't just be a miss. It has to be a glaring, obvious miss, and it hits the gong.
Yeah.
Add insult to injury right there.
If this were a Dungeons and Dragons game, Jack would have just rolled a 1.
It's a total 1. It's a total 1.
Unless, if we want to, look at conspiracy stuff again, was that the knife ensuring that he missed? Was it the magic knife at work, purposely making him miss so that he would be able to use the reflexes?
That's a good point. Well, I mean, that's kind of something I was gonna mention in just a minute about Jack's, his true superpower, one of his true superpowers. But I was just gonna say that that's great how Hong looks at the knife, says, "Nice knife," but gentlemen, if we ever come to a moment where we're facing our potential death, which I hope never happens to any of us, don't you want the guy on the other side to address you by your last name and say goodbye? Goodbye. Again, I hope we never get to that. But if you do have that life or death moment, don't you want a guy in like a dinner jacket to say, goodbye, Mr. Stillo? I mean, we all deserve a Bond moment now and then, and Jack gets a Bond moment.
It very much is a Bond moment. Yeah, that was my thought.
Yeah, I mean,
too.
just it would have been really awesome if Luke Skywalker had thrown his lightsaber at Darth Vader and had gotten it's a very good lightsaber. Goodbye, Mr. Skywalker.
You've gotten the respect of your adversary at that point.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
That would be funny if somebody just did a mashup. Somehow they were able to make it so that famous movies all had showdowns in this manner, where they compliment the weapon and then they throw it and they say goodbye, Mr. So-and-so.
I don't know that a showdown like this has ever been duplicated in another movie, which makes it all the more special. Burton's ineptitude is really the theme, right? Like that he doesn't really strike a blow at all. He barely, and when he does, it's usually by accident. So you're expecting him to miss when he tosses that knife. You really are.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, nothing comes easy in this movie. He early on he tried to use the Tech 9 against Lopan for the easy shot, and no, it gets grabbed by thunder and it gets shattered. And here he tries to do the easy toss at Lopan, and no, that also misses. But what I do like in this scene, though, is how you immediately cut to the reaction shots from different characters after this happens. You see Lopan and Miao Yin, they both turn and look very disapprovingly at Jack. I had a note here that, this is where the laugh track would go if this were a BTLC sitcom. You would, because you just love Jack Burton's slow, oh crap expression. And then he slowly turns, and even you can see Gracie disapprovingly, the oh Jack type face. Just good pacing, good playing that part up.
Throw in some Three's Company incidental music.
Yeah.
Jack.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah. But Lopan is also overconfident.
Yeah, he makes the rookie mistake of releasing Mao Yin to pick the knife up, which kind of plays into your theory a little bit that maybe he's throwing the knife off base to try and not hit Mao Yin and not hit Lopan. Might have been on purpose. I don't think it was, but it did get Mao Yin out of the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a shame if you think about it. He spent 2,000 years trying to find that one girl so he could become flesh, only to last maybe a couple of minutes as a human. We're already trying to handle this.
That's what I was saying here. Not only does he only last a couple of minutes as a human, but really his plan is not that horrible. I mean, Gracie Law has been making everybody in Chinatown miserable. Like he was going to eliminate her and get a wife to live out eternity conquering the world with. Like things were really rosy for Lopan and for Chinatown. Like the Chinatown economy was pretty good because of him.
Oh dear.
How many people just lost their job?
Well, a lot of Wing Kong openings, I can tell you, after all these fights that have been going on.
I mean, now Egg Shin's going to have to deal with interviewing all these ex-Wing Kong guys. Import little Chinese lizard legs for him. It's going to be really difficult for him now.
Or he can make the mistake of disbanding the Wing Kong entirely, and then they would rise up as something even more evil.
Oh.
ISIS.
Exactly. This could go badly.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Can we get to this one of the greatest villain deaths in history?
Yes. Well, Lopan has his admiration for Jack's knife. He has his Bond line. Notice Jack is ready. He shoves aside the girls and he prepares. He knows what's coming. And with the goodbye, Mr. Burton, we get the great catch and throw with a great sound effect too, with the knife thudding into the forehead of Lopan. And thus marks one of the best cinematic deaths that are out there. It even causes an earthquake when it's done.
Yeah. It's clean, it's fast, it's done. Let's talk about fight scenes today and climactic scenes. Or, I was just watching an action flick, which I will not name, featuring an actor named Ryan. And there's a big fight scene at the end with this actor I shall not mention, whose name is Ryan. But, it was just so cliched. It was 5 to 10 minutes of I punch you, you punch me, back and forth. But we're kind of expecting that at this point, even in 1985, 86. But it's so sudden and so clean and boom, and he's gone. Mm-hmm. And, as an audience, we were probably expecting it to go on a little longer and knock down, drag out. But no, it's I think everybody's sort of, what now?
Yeah, this kind of reminded me a little bit like the fight scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark between Indy and the swordsman. You're expecting this big, long, drawn-out thing, but no, he just pulls out the gun and shoots him. Here, he just grabs the knife and throws it right back. And it's
that's
quick
a really good
and effective.
comparison.
Yeah, it kind of shocks the audience, but it's a great hero moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think Thunder's reaction pretty much sums up the audience reaction too.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that's coming.
But if I can make a point here, gentlemen, here's where you fulfill your destiny as guests on this podcast, because I don't know anybody who drives professionally for a living. And I think maybe the key to Jack throughout this movie, when he focuses, when he's thinking about it, when he tries to do something, he goofs up. When he just impulsively grabs that knife and throws it back, bingo, bullseye, zoom. And to me, that says, what's his job? He's a truck driver. He's rolling down the highway. He's listening to Charlie Daniels on the tape cassette, or maybe the Coupe de Villes, and somebody swerves in front of him. He doesn't have time to think. He just does. Maybe that's, hey, he's been saying it since early on. It's all on the reflexes. So, do you guys know anybody who maybe drives professionally or does race car driving on the side, or
I know a few guys who are kind of semi-pro. Actually, one guy that we've had on the podcast that we hope to have back is a friend of mine who does movie stunt driving, Chris Allman. And I think when it comes to, and I do heavily amateur stuff, and, I've got sort of like a mental plan, but that all goes to the back of my mind, and then I just drive. I don't think about it. Because what you're doing at that point, you're just feeling what the car is doing with your body and your inner ear and that sort of thing. And you're just reacting to it and following the course. You don't have a lot of stuff on your mind at that point. So yeah, I think there's something to that. And then Sid and I also do improv comedy. And the first rule of improv comedy is yes and. Well, but the second rule, which is pertinent to this situation, is don't think. And you find your best scenes in improv when you're not thinking about what to do next. You're just reacting, and then you find the humor and the fun and that sort of thing. So I think there is something to just having it be all in the reflexes.
Yeah, and again, I think that's where he is at his best, because we could go back through the movie and think of moments where, oh yeah, Jack did well on that, and it's usually where, he's not thinking about it. He's just reacting to it. We need to have Egg come in and say, Jack, don't think. Stop thinking, Jack. Use the not thinking.
Well, yeah, Egg, he's conspicuously absent. His multi-century rivalry has just been ended for him, and he didn't get to see it.
That's right. He did not interfere.
We just don't get enough about where Egg's loyalties stand, and where he was in that picture when everybody was being subjugated to one emperor. I get the feeling that there were a bunch of rival clans. I think this is Chinese history that they were actually pulling from, and that now they kind of had to work together to maintain that level of balance. So, and you get this feeling that Egg and Lo Pan are friends. When they do the little video game struggle in the about 10 minutes ago in the movie, I guess, that they're not really rivals out to kill each other so much. Although, he says that superficially, but it seems like he just wants to just mess with this guy forever.
Yeah, it's that whole energy of arch enemies. We meet again, like in Wrath of Khan. Kirk, you're alive, my old friend. It's like, wait a minute.
And again, like I pointed out before, the existence of the struggle brings balance to the universe in this world. And when that balance is upset, something bad's going to happen. Which is why at the end, Egg says he's going for a long vacation. He doesn't say he's retiring. He doesn't say he's going to go off and start a restaurant. Now he says, I am going to take a vacation, because theoretically somebody else is going to pop up much worse now that the balance has been screwed up.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And we're seeing the balance starting to become unbalanced. Well, that was a beautiful way to phrase it. The balance is now unbalanced. Yeah, with that great gag of all the Buddhas crashing.
Oh, yes. Good segue there. Yes, I actually counted 24 Buddha statues coming down. And I love the fact that the gong is able to keep the dominoes falling, so to speak. Very cool little that they do there.
Yeah, ding dong, the witch is dead. And, we see, Lopan's world is starting to crumble around him.
Mm-hmm. And then we get our great line by Jack, which is a callback to the bottle catch, followed by Gracie's disbelief. Though, it's interesting. I watched the trailer for this movie not too long ago, and there's a line in the trailer that you don't hear in the movie, and it goes here where Gracie says, "Way to go, Jack."
Huh. And I like it better without, because like I said, now Gracie's functioning as the viewer here, really. Like she gives him that look like, I can't believe you missed. And then right at this point, he gives his all on the reflexes line, and the first thing she does before he can run off is try to wipe the lipstick off his face.
Yes. Yeah, she's the one who's able to kind of remind him that he's got that there. Actually, before we get to the part with Wang, I wanted to point out a little screenplay difference here, because it is interesting, a different take that they could have gone here. So in the screenplay, at least the Richter version, Jack never actually reveals what old Jack always says at a time like this, because he's interrupted by Gracie, who hammers Thunder over the head with a vase, which shatters but only serves to distract him. Then Miao Yin is able to get free and attacks Thunder with, quote, such ferocity that his head vibrates like a suet punching bag. And then at that point, Lopan enters the fray to help Thunder, and Jack jumps in and gets punched by Lopan. And then there's a tug of war between Wang and Lopan. They're both holding Miao Yin's arms. And in the screenplay, they write, she's about to crack when whammo, Jack's knife in Lopan's forehead.
That's really interesting when you compare and contrast what somebody comes up with for the battle on paper. Mm-hmm. They're writing it out and they're imagining it. And then there's the day when you have to shoot that. And somebody says, well, you know what? It'd be a lot cleaner and simpler if we omit this and cut to the chase, literally.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up the comparison to the Indiana Jones scene, which ended up happening because he had a ridiculously high fever and diarrhea that day. Yes. He was supposed to fight the swordsman, and instead he was like, "I'm just going to shoot him," and that made for a historic scene. So I'm wondering also, now that you bring it up, like what outside factors are going on as they were filming that made him say, "Hey, let's not film it this way."
I think one thing with the script version, it's more of an ensemble cast at that point.
Yeah.
All four of them are participating in bringing down Lopan. Whereas in this version, Kurt Russell, who's the star of the movie, he gets to be the star of the movie in this scene. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if it was that sort of Hollywood thing where, hey, this is our leading man. He's got to have his moment.
Yeah, maybe that was a studio influence decision.
Yeah. To add to that, I would wonder, they're looking at the dailies. Russell just had so many great moments, and just the way he delivered those lines and finding the right beats. Yeah, that could have been, just what you said, James. It's like, let's give Kurt a shot at this. He's been nailing everything up to this point. So let's try it this way.
Yeah, that would also explain why his what old Jack Burton says is very terse. Up until now, he's got some long story explanation saying that, and here Wang jumps in, and it's clear that he doesn't really have something on his mind, and so he just looks at her and he says, "What the hell?"
Yeah, and then they realize that they forgot about Wang, and then we quickly cut over to the battle between Thunder and Wang.
The great hazard of this movie, by the way, is Wang's name, because you just said on a podcast that we get the great battle between Thunder and Wang.
Yes. It's all about context, folks. Mm-hmm. We get a nice little cut close up, where we get to see Thunder smashing the statue on the table. Here's a neat little bit where, you see the long shot of Thunder actually walking up to this statue that's on the pedestal, and then you get this close-up shot where he, in frustration, will shatter that statue. I'm sure there's probably a sequence where they took out the real statue and they put in one that was actually smashable.
This is a great visual gag. Totally reminds me of something you'd seen in an old Warner Brothers cartoon. I wish we could ask James Liu about this last week, because, again, you wonder, were they behind schedule? Did they have a more elaborate fight plan between Wang and Thunder that would have been a more conventional? Because, I just love this, somebody runs stage right.
Yeah.
Somebody else follows him. You see, garbage flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get the idea what's going on, but it's a classic kind of cartoon fight.
Yes.
You don't see it, you hear it.
Yeah, it is very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
No, the movie goes full cartoon at that point. Yeah, absolutely. From there to the conclusion of the of Thunder's participation, it is full on Warner Brothers cartoon. I think that's a perfect comparison, and it looked like it was deliberate to me.
Yeah. I can imagine that there were stagehands at this point off screen. They were just having fun throwing furniture left and right.
And the screams were just hilarious. Like he's, like Thunder just had this perfect voice where everything was just like this loud, it was just beautiful.
Yeah. And it's a classic setup between, a small guy who's fast and wiry and squirrely and the big, kind of brutish looking guy, come back here, you ornery rabbit, and bang, 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 it could have been an 8-minute cartoon.
And Wang's already killed one of the storms, and that was like an epic battle. That was a flying on wires ballet, which ended in Wang being victorious. So like he knows that there was this kind of I'm about to poke the worst one now and see what happens, or like kind of an escalating situation where they just get the storms like they're getting worse and worse until they get to lightning. But Wang's just running away.
I think that kind of has to be the case just because of the way that Thunder is the enemy. I mean, he's a very physical type of mini-boss, essentially. And I don't think that Wang can best him strength for strength. Sort of Wang's super ability is his agility at this point, and his sword play.
Another great comparison to the mini-boss here, because clearly there was a cheat code that you could use against him.
Up, down, down.
I love
right,
up, down, down.
Left, right. Yeah.
Left, right, boom, inflate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we get to that point because we now see, Jack prepares to face Thunder with the spear, and then Thunder notices that his master has fallen. And some awesome expressions by Carter Wong at this point as Thunder. He looks shocked. He makes this face like he's going to cry. I can see an alternate version of Big Trouble in Little China where suddenly Thunder just breaks down crying and Jack pats him on the back. They're there. They all walk off together.
Oh, I would have loved that.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
That would have been awesome.
I mean, you got to admit, cause the storms were very awesome. It was very hard to see them die. So, you did kind of want them to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go buy some dim sum. It's okay. Let's bet.
Yeah, Lopan's gone. You don't have a job. Like, you might as well hang out with the other side now. Why do they have to die?
He can be a manager of the month at another company.
Yeah, you can move on. Jack knows a guy in a trucking company who needs somebody as a middle management job. But right here, I got a question for you guys, though, about our friend Thunder. And we know what's about to happen to Thunder. And for some reason, in prior viewings, I thought, he was doing a kamikaze. Like, I'm gonna take myself out. Lopan's dead. I have nothing else to live for. I'll never be a manager of the month again. But let me ask you guys, do you think he's going out in a blaze of glory? Or do you think he's lost his ability to control his power? Like he's gonna take out everybody and get his revenge for his fallen master. But when he does his thing, he can't control it.
It's a tough question too, because they clearly the reaction from Wang and crew is, I don't think he's going to stop, and they run for it. So they definitely feel endangered by it. But when they get out the room, all you see is like a bunch of guts just fly out of the, like that, reminiscent of that first viral video ever where they blew up the whale carcass on the beach. Like, the carcass didn't kill anybody, but it certainly inconvenienced a lot of people. So they just really escaped having thunder guts poured all over them.
Yeah, they basically avoided smelling bad. That's the first, like Brett said, the first couple times that I watched it, I thought, okay, he's trying a kamikaze move. But when I watched the clip for today's podcast, I thought what he's going through is just uncontrolled rage at his world crashing down around him. And he has no idea what to do, and he just can't cope.
He seems to be the one that spends the most time at Lopan's side. Like, you get the idea that maybe this is what Waylon Smithers would have done if Jack Burton had hit Mr. Burns in the head with the knife.
Yeah. I mean, this was his beloved overlord, ruler, mentor.
He loved him.
Yeah. He might have had the company when Lopan, decided to, just spend time with his wife. So
It
All
wasn't
that comes
about the
crashing
company,
down.
James. When he looked at Lopan, the way his hair flowed down his back, the way that mustache just teased the size of his chin, the way that makeup glistened, those fingernails that just grew directly out of the tips of his fingers, like little gold claws of a monkey, just scratching out at him, just saying, "Hey, Thunder, hey, you know what's under this robe? Pure David Lopan. That's what's under this robe."
Pure David Lopan.
So
First
Thunder-
time all those words have been said together in a sentence.
You're welcome.
Pure David Lopan. It's beautiful. The moment is like a great reference to, a lot of great, foam latex explosion gross out scenes in movies of the 80s, like Monty Python and the Meaning of Life, Mr.
Yes.
Creosote going up. And we could probably think of a bunch of others. But yeah, I think they just had the technology back then to make it a guy blowing up look really cool and gross. So they did
You
it.
do need to wonder if Carpenter, because Carpenter movies are kind of notorious for having some cool, gross out effects in them, and he probably set out at the beginning of this thing thinking, I want to have a guy blow up.
Yeah, I had a note here that this is it's a bizarre and wonderful moment, and my question was, what other film does this? But I guess that would be it, The Meaning of Life. I can't think of any other ones where a guy kind of just inflates and explodes.
Oh gosh.
License to Kill.
Oh,
But it wasn't a main villain. It was Sanchez puts one of his henchmen in a decompression chamber and
that's
rapidly
right.
decompresses.
Good one. Good
And
one.
can we leave out Total Recall here?
Yeah,
His
totally.
eyes bulge in that one for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's
The often overlooked Outland with Sean Connery. I think that was a 79 or 80. That has a great explosive decompression mining astronaut blowing up scene in the beginning of the movie that
I'm gonna need to rewatch that one. It's been so long.
yeah, just
I know what you're
that
talking
one
about.
bit. A great exploding astronaut scene. So, and then there's probably others we're not thinking of. The minute we stop this podcast, we're all going to go, oh, wait a minute.
But how many are out there with characters that have steam coming out of their nose and ears, like Wile E. Coyote?
Yeah. Yeah. We are completely in cartoon land here. And if you're going to have a guy blowing up, have steam coming out of his nostrils and his,
And his ears, yeah. That's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll point out to I think we're kind of all leaning more towards he can't control it. It's out of control. At one point we see him pull out the knife as in a threatening gesture, his storm knife.
Yes.
Then it's real quick, but you see it drop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whatever has happened, he's lost it. He's out of control. He dropped his knife.
Yeah. Yeah. His belt too goes down, and you even see his boots split. He wasn't wearing any socks.
Oh, gross.
And there wasn't a big threat in front of him. Like, he had Wang on the ropes, and Burton's standing there kind of looking not prepared. So it wasn't like he couldn't have just gone on and continued fighting. Like, he wanted to go on his own terms.
And that segues into the gross green explosion that happens off screen, conveniently covered by rubble. You don't have to worry about stepping over that stuff after it goes.
Yeah, because I think if we isolated that, frame by frame, I think they just took the insides of a couch and, just quickly painted them green and then just hurled them out. It works, but they just do look like, big chunks of green, greasy foam. But then again, that's what we want in a movie like this. We don't need elaborate CGI of, entrails and all that. Just, pieces of old couch covered in green gore. And
well, what's particularly amazing here is that we go from, like you said, Warner Brothers cartoon, and as soon as they step out of that room and the guts get covered over by rubble, we shift from Warner Brothers cartoon to just extremely awesome action movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we make our transition over to Lightning's entrance at that point. And I just thought it was awesome how Lightning he calmly walks in. You get that really cool lightning effect. The lighting on the walls. He's zapping the walls. It's awesome stuff.
And the music, I mean, we talked before about Carpenter is just he does his own music, and he has it, he times it perfectly. And this one just lays down a rhythm, boom, 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 and then like the synthesizer pops in with that kind of Asian theme to it, and it's just perfectly timed. It's the kind of music that you almost buy just to have on your own stereo when you walk in. And it just sets this character up perfectly. Who, by the way, I think I read actually was the inspiration for Raiden in Mortal Kombat.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, same look there.
You know what? Here, something I noticed, and probably overreading it. Lightning, it seems, he's flashing lightning bolts right and left, and there's just one more time that great 80s style blue lightning. But is it just me? Am I grieving for Thunder? But you can't seem to hit him. It's like he seems to have maybe lost his lightning abilities, or at least his ability to aim better, because he's got the powers, but they seem askew. And maybe without Lo Pan being around to control somehow the elementals of the storms, they're somewhat incapacitated. Or am I overthinking?
No, that's interesting.
Lightning seems to be the most powerful of them. The only time we ever see him on the road is one time where he tries to hit Egg, and Egg just whips out a fan and just and knocks him on his butt, and he looks surprised. Every other time, he just takes his time, methodically, doing it on his turn, doing everything on his terms. Like, he's just so cool, and he knows he's that cool. He never speaks a word. So I noticed that too. Like, he could have just sent the bolt straight at them, and it is lightning. It probably would have killed them all. But instead, he chooses to just keep hitting the walls as he gets closer and closer.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression that that Lightning, he knows that his boss is dead. He doesn't just want to shock these guys. He wants to make this personal. And that's why I love how the movie goes from sort of like cartoon land to, oh, wow, the stakes are high again. Even after we've beaten a boss and a mini boss, the hardest mini boss is coming. And this is not going to end well if he catches up to Jack.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, him shooting the walls does have a purpose. We kind of see a little glimpse of this when, if you look near the end, there's like an orange bit that's sagging down from the ceiling, and then you see it fall in the background as lightning advances. It turns out that this is actually a sort of a scaled down version of a sequence when the whole room was supposed to be filling with fire, smoke, and lava. And if you have the Blu-ray, you can actually see one of the extras. There's some storyboards where they show this really elaborate scene where it's basically Jack Burton in hell trying to escape from lightning and all the fury of hell to go with it.
That would have been kind of awesome to see, actually, because the him doing the ceiling thing was I always caught that and found it to be really just an awesome touch, that he ignites the whole ceiling and then just slowly walks away from it as it falls down behind him, and then he just starts hitting the walls like it's going to do anything on stone. The only thing I had for you was that urine is more conductive than human skin, so maybe he was trying to scare the piss out of him a little bit, and then just that'll help conduct the electricity.
Do you do any screenwriting? Because that has to be incorporated into a script. That's such a great bit, and nobody's touched it for various reasons.
I've never been a big urine toucher myself.
Good point.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, that wraps up our 5 minutes. But before we go, I wanted to first just kind of ask you guys, James and Sid, what's your experience seeing Big Trouble in Little China? When was the first time you guys remember seeing it?
So I'll probably start because I'm the one that dragged James into watching this movie for the podcast. But this goes back to when I was 12 or 13. I think I'm pretty sure I saw it back then, and just and have watched it countless times. It is the one movie that is saved on my iPhone. I've with my kids, I always have brought them in when I feel they're the appropriate age to fully appreciate it. And I am an evangelist for this movie. If I know somebody who hasn't seen it and does not understand its greatness, I will wear them down until they do.
And what about you, James?
Well, I didn't see it in the theater. I'm a little younger than Sid, but my experience, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. I saw a scene of it. I don't know if it was this particular 5 minutes, but I saw part of the movie on like a UHF station when I was probably late elementary, early middle school. and I just caught like 5 minutes of it. It cuts to commercial. I have to go somewhere or something like that. And I think, oh man, I have got to see this movie again. And this will definitely show my age here. I looked in a TV paper. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Saw what the name of the movie was, and then tried to find out when it was playing again. And like probably, you know, ditched friends or homework or whatever. When I saw it was coming on like channel 46, I would go and watch it, commercial breaks and all. And then I would just kind of make a point to watch it like whenever it came on, like USA or TNT. And it just kind of stayed with me. And then when we started doing the podcast, I thought, well, this is not in my collection and I need to correct that. And now it is in my collection and I absolutely love it.
Very cool.
Very cool.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about your own podcast about Reels and Wheels?
Sure. So James and I have been dreaming of doing this. We were stand-up comics, and we were both we're in Norfolk. James is in Atlanta now. But we both love cars. We both love comedy, and we both love movies. And we wanted to do this for a while. And somebody finally, a friend of ours, Tobias, finally pushed us off the couch basically and helped set us up with going through movies and just talking about the cars and we have a very niche audience, but a very devoted audience because we were such a specialized product. But it's so fun to just like take a movie and look at its cars and draw unnecessary metaphors between them and the characters.
Yeah. And sometimes we just go off on tangents talking about Pontiac Fieros,
which we could talk about for hours. We got to. You guys do have to find more movies that prominently feature Fieros.
We did Ferris Bueller. If you listen to our Ferris Bueller podcast, it's one of our top rated ones, and the Fiero is quite featured in that one.
Oh, okay. I got to check out Ferris Bueller again. Fiero Bueller. I'd forgotten that there were any Fiero references in that one, but yeah, I got to say, you know, I've heard your guys' podcast. You know, I definitely loved the episode you were on, Josh, and I've become a big fan. You guys, it's great what you guys do. And, you know, when you talk about movies, you got to talk about cars inevitably. They've been there, you know, since the Keystone Cops days.
You know, the funny thing is what people always say to us is, are you going to have enough movies? How long are you able to do this podcast? You have no idea. Cars are ubiquitous, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a movie about a car. Not, you know, it doesn't have to all be Bullet, but we find, I mean, one of the first podcasts we did was RoboCop because I wanted to talk about the cop cars in that movie. So it's really, you know, it's easier than you think to pull out movies, and we've got tons of them in the hopper just waiting.
Yeah, we haven't done Ground Free yet, mainly because I think that would involve recording what will essentially be an audiobook. But yeah, there's all kinds of movies. You know, in some movies they're central, like in Mad Max and Ferris Bueller. And in some, like our Christmas podcast, Gremlins, we basically just talked about how the Volkswagen Beetle is important to that movie. Why? Because like most Volkswagens, it doesn't start when you need it to.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there actually is an internet movie database for cars that you guys seem to rely on.
There is.
Oh, yes.
There is. Yeah, it is. Bailed us out many times.
Yeah, no, neat stuff.
It's what put us onto the Fiero in Big Trouble in Little China.
That's right. Well, that does pretty much wrap up this episode. Please visit us at 5minutesoftrouble.com. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at 5 Minutes of Trouble and at Twitter at 5 Minutes Trouble. We also have a truck stop on Facebook, the 5 Minutes of Trouble truck stop. So please join that and continue the conversation. And if you can, please tell your friends about this podcast. Give us a nice rating on iTunes. And want to also give a shout out to some of the other Movies by Minutes podcasts out there. You can check them out at moviesbyminutes.com. So James and Sid, thank you guys both for really, bringing some really cool insights and conversations to us in Big Drum Little China, and thanks for having me on your show, and I'm glad that we could have you on ours as well.
Thanks. This has been awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Absolute blast, you guys. Before we go, as we're rolling down Highway 99 here, either you guys want to take the wheel of the Podcast Express?
Come on, James. You know you want to.
Yeah. Because what I can do, Josh, you hop out of the driver's seat. I'll hold the wheel.
It's the Podcast Express, signing off.
Tune in next week for another 5 Minutes of Trouble.